Hello and welcome back to my channel. Thank you for the commitment that you have shown to the content on this channel. And in case you're new, I also want to welcome you. This is a channel that you will find content on personal development, leadership, and life management. My name is Kpamor Suleh, and this week I'll give you content on what I have titled Reasons Why You Are or May Be Rejected. Reasons why you are or may be rejected. And this content is important to you if you are presently being rejected, or to you so that you will avert rejection in the course of your life. And I'll be giving you 4 reasons that I have considered very, very important on why people are generally rejected, and I'll also proffer some solutions on how you can end rejection in case one of the reasons applies to you. Now, rejection is very, very painful, and if you have been rejected, you will agree with me that it's a painful experience. It's what you would not wish to experience in life, and a lot of persons are still under the burden of rejection, either because maybe they have been rejected by their spouse, or they have been rejected by their parents, or they have been rejected by one organization or the other. And so that's why I want to give you this content, so that you will prepare yourself to avoid rejection, or in case if you are one of those who have already been rejected, you will know what it means to be accepted. We have a saying by King David, who was the king of Israel, and is recorded in the book of Psalms 118 and verse 22. And he said, "The stone which the builders have rejected has become the cornerstone." The stone which the builders have rejected has become the cornerstone. Now, one of the key ideas that we can derive from this saying is that irrespective of the fact that you have been rejected, and not minding how many times you would have been rejected or by whoever that may have rejected you, there is a possibility that you can still be accepted. Now, if the builder would reject a stone that is used for building, then one would think that that stone may never be amounted to anything in building at all, because as it has to do with building, you would expect that builders are one of the people that would give you the characteristics of materials that will be best suited for a building project. And so it's amazing to realize that a builder would reject a stone, and yet that stone will later be accepted, and it will even become the cornerstone. There are things that went into that process, and those things that went into that process are what I want to give you, so that you also, who may have been rejected, would also become the cornerstone of that place from which you were rejected. And one of the reasons why you are rejected, or you may be rejected, is when your quest for acceptance goes against the norms that have been cherished or held in high esteem. If your quest to be accepted goes against some norms that are upheld by organizations or upheld by some individuals, then you can be sure that you would be rejected by them. One of those norms is when people hold some norms that certain people in certain nations are not trustworthy. And so irrespective of how you are, if you come in contact with some persons who have a belief that certain people in certain nations are not trustworthy, then you would be rejected. Or maybe you desire to marry a partner from a location that it is believed that some persons may not be married from those locations, or maybe you have applied for employment in an organization for a position that it is believed that it's only a particular sex that should occupy that position. Or maybe you belong to a particular sex, male or female, and you are seeking a political position in a particular nation. So there are different norms that are upheld in different strata of life. And if your quest to be accepted goes against any of those norms, then it happens that you will be rejected. Not because you could not deliver had you been given such an opportunity, but simply because your quest goes against a norm that is held in high esteem. And what you need to do in such a situation is that you need to be persistent. You need to be persistent. When you are rejected, and you are very sure that the reason for which you are rejected is simply because your quest to be accepted goes against a particular norm that is highly esteemed, then the solution to it is that you need to be persistent. There is a story, and that story is in the book of Luke 18, beginning from verse 1, where a widow sought judgment from a judge, and he sought that she should be avenged of her enemies. Now, that story tells us that that judge did not have regard for God and also did not have regard for anybody. But after a while, so that he could have his peace, he decided to avenge that widow of her enemies. There is a personal belief that I have about that story. And what I believe is that the reason for which that judge had denied that widow judgment in her case was simply because the case was such a case that was unusual. Probably it's a matter that had not been resolved before. You know, if you are a lawyer, you will know that lawyers deal a lot with precedents. Anytime a lawyer or a judge, a judge is to deliver judgment in a matter that does not have precedent, it's usually a very difficult thing for them. They like relying on precedent. So probably the case that widow brought before that judge did not have precedence. Such a matter had not existed before. And so the matter was meant to go against the norm in that city. And that was the reason why that judge opted not to deliver judgment in favor of that widow. But because she persisted, at the end of the day, the judge delivered judgment in her favor. So irrespective of the fact that you are qualified, irrespective of the fact that you may have evidence to prove your case, if you are not persistent, you will not be accepted. The same way, if that widow had not been persistent, despite the fact that she had all the evidences in her favor, she would not have been avenged of her enemies. So if you are rejected, and the reason for which you are rejected is because your quest to be accepted goes against some certain norms that are held in high esteem, then what you need to do is to be persistent. And I can assure you that if you are persistent, it is just a matter of time. You will certainly become the chief cornerstone. And what that means is that you would be accepted. The second reason why you are rejected or you may be rejected is when you meet the wrong people. Many people are weighed down with the burden of rejection simply because they met the wrong people or they sought acceptance from the wrong people. You can imagine somebody who made a marriage proposal to someone who was not meant to be his or her partner in the first place. you were rejected, maybe you may feel bad and be crying, not knowing that you were not actually meant even to be with such a person. Or you sent an employment proposal to an organization that was not even worthy of your services. You sought to travel to a nation that was not worthy of you even entering into it. And you were denied visa. And you're crying, not knowing that that nation did not deserve you in the first place. So a lot of people are weighed down with the burden of rejection simply because they sought acceptance from people who were not worthy of them. And they are crying, not knowing that they should be celebrated, or they should be celebrating for having been rejected. You will read something in Matthew chapter 7 and verse 6, and it says, if you cast your pear to the swine, they will trample with it upon their feet. And the reason they will do that is because they do not know the value of a pear. A pear is something that is very precious. To you, it may be precious, but if you cast it to someone who do not have value for it, you will be surprised how he will trample it on his feet. If you cast it to someone who do not have value for it, you will be surprised how he or she will trample it upon his or her feet. Now let me surprise you. One of the precious things in the world today is gold. But do you know that if you give gold to someone who do not know the value of gold, you will be surprised how such a person will handle it. And now, take for instance, you have a gold necklace or maybe a gold wristwatch and you give it to a child of maybe 2 years. How do you think that child will handle that gold wristwatch? You will be amazed how maybe that child will be rubbing that gold wristwatch on a stone or just throwing it around. The simple reason is because he does not know the value of that gold wristwatch. So it could be that the reason why you were rejected was simply because you sought to be accepted by the wrong people. And if that is the reason, then what I recommend as a solution for you is to prayerfully seek to meet the right people. Be it in business, be it in employment, be it in nations you would like to travel to, be it in your quest to find a life partner, someone you will stay with in marriage. Whatever your quest is, prayerfully seek that you will meet the right people. And if you do, they will know your value, they will know your worth, and they will accept you. Now, the third reason that I want to give you that may be the reason why you are rejected now or you may be rejected may simply be because of lack of preparation. If you are not prepared for what you seek to have, you will certainly be rejected. Now, people are not patient in the present time that we are. Employers of labor are not patient with employees. Now, the times where we knew so much about on-the-job training is gradually going back. We are entering into a season where, as you are being employed, an employer of labor expects that you start delivering results even on your day of resumption of work. And so that time that people will be employed and they will be sent to 3 months training and 6 months training and 1 year training is gradually fading away. Now, one of the sectors or one of the areas of life that this has been depicted very glaringly is the football, the club football especially. Now, gone are the days where club owners go in search of players. They buy you and then they put you on training and start investing in you again, hoping that you will yield at a later time in the season. We are in a time where the very moment that you have been landed in a club as a purchase, you are required to start yielding results. No club will pay thousands of dollars or thousands of pounds on you, or millions of dollars or pounds, and then will be patient for you that you should get acclimatized or you should get to know. It's expected that you should be someone who will deliver results the moment you have been signed. And that can be seen in other aspects of life also. And so if you are not prepared, you would certainly be rejected. If you are not prepared, you would certainly be rejected. Like I said, the time where on-the-job preparation was recommended is gradually fading away. Why I still encourage that it should be condoned to some reasonable extent. The demand for results is gradually making it to fade away. Now, can you imagine the scenario of Pharaoh, the situation that Pharaoh found himself in? Can you imagine that Pharaoh called Joseph, and Joseph came and proffered the solution, and then was saying that, Pharaoh, this is a solution to this problem, but there is nothing we can do at the moment because nobody has been prepared for such a job. So we will need probably 2 years to train someone who will handle such a solution that I have proffered to you. Pharaoh would have been disappointed. Very, very disappointed. So that's the kind of situation that we are in now. We are in a situation where people demand on-the-spot results from those from which they have hired or from those of which they are associated. So if you are not prepared, you will certainly be rejected. We know of a story of Solomon when Solomon was building a temple for God. The Bible says that the stones that were used for that temple were being prepared at the quarry site. It means those stones were prepared prior to the time of usage or prior to the time of demand for their usage. So there are a lot of advantages for you to be prepared even before you seek to be accepted. And two of them, I'll just give you two. One of them is that it provides for noiseless preparation on the site. Can you imagine that those stones were being broken at the site of building? There would have been a lot of noise. In fact, that story that is recorded about Solomon says that because the stones were prepared at the quarry site, there were no noise at the site of building. Go to so many organizations now, go to so many marriages, go to so many places that people are being prepared on the job. There are a lot of noises. A lot of noises, either in the form of conflict or in the form of mistakes, simply because people are being trained on the job. So one of the greatest advantages of preparing beforehand is that you avoid mistakes, you avoid noisy occurrences that may come either in form of conflict or in form of errors. The second reason or advantage of preparing beforehand is that you make room for speedy construction. I believe strongly that had these stones been prepared at the construction site, the pace with which Solomon built that temple wouldn't have been like that. Can you imagine a club buying a player and then waiting for a whole season or maybe half of the season for the player to acclimatize? The pace of the result will be very, very low. So there is advantage in preparing beforehand. And so if you are rejected simply because you did not prepare well enough, be it maybe in a relationship, or maybe you sought employment and you were rejected because you did not prepare well enough, Or you sought a visa in an embassy and you were rejected because you had not prepared well, not maybe you didn't even know the person who was heading that nation. They just asked you who is the leader of so nation, and you could not answer it, and that's a nation that you desired to travel to. How will you be given a visa for God's sake? So what you need to know is that you need to get back, prepare very well. And I can assure you that if you have thoroughly prepared yourself, you will not be rejected again. You will be accepted in the same way that that stone that had been rejected became the chief cornerstone. It will amaze you that it may be the same people who rejected you that will end up accepting you. The fourth reason that I want to give you on why you are rejected or why you may be rejected is jealousy. Now, this one is a situation where one is rejected not because his quest for acceptance goes against norms. He's rejected not because he's not prepared, but he's simply just rejected for envy, for jealousy. The reason is because maybe the person from whom you sought acceptance saw your potentials and knew beforehand that should you be accepted, you will be celebrated more than him or her. So because of that, such a person simply rejects you. Such a person simply denies you acceptance. In such a case, what I would recommend as a solution is that you need to engage in truthful living. You need to be transparent. You need to engage in righteous living. Now, the reason why people become jealous most times is because they have a feeling of being overwhelmed by your influence. And so when by your living standard, principles and rules, you make it known that you are not in a competitive fight with such a person, you can shine your shine and he also can shine his shine, the way people usually say it, then there is that likelihood that you will be accepted. And even if such a person still feel a threat to being overwhelmed by your influence, then at that point, God will come to your aid and certainly create a room for your acceptance. So in case you are rejected simply because of jealousy, maybe the person who should have accepted you is scared or afraid that your acceptance will undermine his or her existence, or your acceptance will undermine his or her the disposition of what he does, then I want you to engage in truthful living, transparent living. Just live out your life righteously the best that you can. And if he does not realize your standard of living and accept you, then let me assure you that God will come to your aid and create a room for your acceptance. So generally what I'm trying to tell you by these 4 points that I have given you is that irrespective of the number of times that you have been rejected, irrespective of who has rejected you, if you can study these 4 principles and 4 reasons that I have given you and work on ways to solve those solutions to these reasons, let me assure you that you will find acceptance. If it is not from the same people who rejected you, then it will be from someone else who may have now identified your value, who may now have identified your worth, and then he will accept you. Thank you very much for being with me this week. I hope that you will enjoy this content as you go over it and try to put it into practice. If you have not subscribed to my channel, you can do well to hit the subscription, the red subscription icon, and also hit the notification button so that each time I upload videos, you will be notified. If you have found this content interesting, please like the video and also drop a comment on how I can serve you better. Thank you very much for this time. I look forward to seeing you next week, Thursday, 6 p.m. GMT+1. God bless you.